In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a keyword analysis on a subcorpus of a corpus that is already uploaded on Sketch Engine. So if you have an institutional login, then that's the best way forward. Otherwise, you'll need to create an account. So I'm connecting via my institutional account, and this means I now have access to the corpora that I've uploaded myself and also the ones that are automatically available for everyone who has a Sketch Engine account. And that includes a version of Parliament Great Britain. It's Parliament 2.1 at the moment, so it's not the most current, but it's the only one available on this platform, so that's what we used for now. And it's actually already selected for me, which is why I cannot select it. If I select something else, then I'll be able to reselect it. But that's why it was in grey. So by default, Sketch Engine will always take you to the last corpus that you used. So I'm now looking at the English Parliamentary Debates corpus, Parliament version 2.1, and I can have a look at information about the corpus with the little I. Here I have some information. I can click here to get more information. And in particular, I can also manage the subcorpora. So a subcorpus is a part of a corpus, and there are different ways to create subcorpora. I'm going to create one according to text types. In other words, I'm creating a subcorpus based on some metadata as opposed to based on some actual text. So from the metadata, and here I have the choice of the metadata that is available for Parliament 2.1, and I'm actually going to look at the speaker's party name, because what I would like to do is I'd like to create a subcorpus that only contains the speeches of SNP parliamentarians, MPs, in other words, members of the Scottish National Party. And I'm also going to pick this one. This appears to be someone who was both an SNP member and also independent, but I'm going to pull those together. And then I need to give my subcorpus a name. I'm going to call it the SNP subcorpus. And then I click on Save. And that was very quick. My subcorpus has been created. It's called SNP subcorpus, and it contains about 4.7 million words. So it's a very small corpus compared to the entire Parliament, which is much, much larger. And so my subcorpus is just 4.7% of the total Parliament 2.1 corpus. And what I can now do is I can do searches in this subcorpus only. I can do that in the concordance lines, as we've seen before. I can now select the SNP subcorpus, and I can now conduct searches only in this small proportion of the corpus. So for example, I could now look at the word Brexit. And this is going to give me concordance lines of Brexit containing the word Brexit, but only by MPs who are SNP members. And I can check here. We can see Callum Robert Kerr is also an SNP member, as we expected. So that's how I can use a subcorpus to do searches. I can also use a subcorpus to compute keywords. And you can read up about keywords here and also on the Sketch Engine documentation that I recommend. We're going to take the Advanced tab, and what we're going to do is we are going to look for keywords in a focus subcorpus, namely the SNP subcorpus. And of course you can create your own and use that. And our reference corpus is going to be the whole of Parliament. So I'm comparing this subcorpus with the entire corpus. But you can compare two entirely different corpora. That's also possible. The keyword setting, I'm taking our lemmas. That means that I'm actually looking for key lemmas rather than key word forms, but there are different options available. I'm going to stick to lemma, and my search is going to be case insensitive. That means that capitalization is not going to be taken into consideration when computing the key lemmas. And then here we have some important information that's a bit abstract in Sketch Engine, but essentially here we have how rare the words should be, the keywords should be that we find. We're going to stick with the default setting for now, and we'll see what happens when we change that later on. At the bottom we have go, so that's the equivalent of enter. And this could take a while the first time you do it, but the results should be saved so that you can reuse them later on. Okay, so this took a couple of minutes, but we now have the results. And what you can see is that we have words that are clearly specific to Scotland, so the Highlands. We have the use of the word we, which is specific to Scottish and Irish English. We have some cities like Glasgow and some regions. Iverness, we have the adjective Scottish. We also have some opposition, so presumably the SNP MPs speak a lot about the Tories, so about a party that they usually disagree with. And then some projects that are specific to Scotland as well. And for all of these, of course, you can click on the three dots and then have a look at how this word or this lemma is used in the focus corpus. So that's our subcorpus of SNP speeches only, or in the reference corpus. Or those are word sketches, but you can also look at the concordances, which is what I would recommend. So we're going to look at the concordance of we, and as I said, it's specific to Irish and Scottish English, and it's a diminutive. So we have moving on a we constituency tour, so that's a small, short tour of some kind. It's usually a diminutive of some kind. And there are 201 occurrences in this subcorpus, and presumably next to 0 in the reference corpus, but we can have a look, see if there are any occurrences, because of course there can be Scottish MPs or North Irish MPs who are not members of the SNP. They might be from a different party. So John Robertson, for instance, uses we in this context. And we can have a look. He is a Labour MP, and we could find out which constituency he represents and whether it's one in Scotland or maybe in Northern Ireland. So that's how we use keywords. We can also, these are single keywords, we can also look at multi-word terms. So here we have some bigrams. And so we can see some bigrams that are specific or highly associated with SNP speeches. If we go back to the criteria, I'd like to point to this slider, which is really important. Unfortunately, the actual units are very opaque in Sketch Engine, but essentially what we have is the more towards the left we go, the rarer the words are in the subcorpus, and so the more specific they are to our subcorpus. So it depends what kind of topics we're interested in, what kind of keywords we're interested in, whether we want to have things that are really very highly specific or perhaps less specific in terms of what will be most informative about the discourse that we have in our subcorpus. So we can play around with these criteria. I'm gonna so I've just switched it to a little bit further to the left to make the query or the engine look for things that are even rarer, and at the same time, and for now I'm going to keep the minimum frequency to 1, which is probably not a good idea. What this means is that only one occurrence of a rare word suffices to put it on the list. And this is likely to lead to things like typos or places, place nouns, or people mentioned just once in a subcorpus popping up on this list of keywords, and that's probably not very representative of the corpus as a whole. And this is what's happening. So we've got pretendi. I'm not sure if that's a place or if that's a dialectal use. So it's a way to an adjective from pretend, and it's obviously sort of taking the mick of saying it's not really a living wage. It's a living wage. It's a pretendy living wage. This may be a dialectal form that I'm not familiar with, and we can see that it's just a few individuals that use this particular form. We could see exactly how many people use this by going at line details. We can see that Christopher Stevens uses 3 times and Patricia Gibson 3 times. So we have a short list of speakers. This is from each speech. So actually it's not quite what I needed. What I meant is therefore text types. And here we will have individual speakers here. So actually Alison Emily Fewless uses it 28 times. So she's by far the biggest user of pretendi as an adjective. And then just a few other speakers who use this term. Very interesting term, I should say. I very much like it. I might adopt it myself. So this is what we can see when we change that cursor to look at rarer keywords. We end up with words that are that maybe only occur very few times in the corpus. So we also see we have some place names in here, and very specific things to maybe a specific region or a specific speech on a specific day, and that may not be what we're looking for to analyze the discourse of a subcorpus. So it's worth playing around with this cursor. It is also worth considering adding a minimum frequency of, say, 10 occurrences. That's 10 occurrences in the subcorpus that we're looking at, and this will ensure that something like a typo or something that's mentioned just once by one speaker is not added to the list of keywords. And so here now pretendi is at the very top, and we have some of the same things as we had earlier on, but you can see the order has changed, and some words are no longer on the list. But on the whole, this is the cursor that you'll want to experiment with most. If you go for very common words, then you might find that this is really not very helpful to learn about the discourse of this particular subcorpus. So now we have Scotland, Scottish, UK, SNP government. This is very, very broad. But might still be worth looking into. So for instance, we see the woman as the lemma, so it might be also in the plural form, is mentioned more often or is more strongly associated with SNP speakers than with the rest of the speakers in the corpus. And that might be something also that we want to explore by having a look at the concordance lines in both the focus subcorpus, that this one here, and also the reference corpus, that's the whole of Parliament, to compare the two and to compare the use of the lemma woman. So that's keywords, and for this we are using sketchengine.eu, which requires an account, and some universities have an institutional account. This includes the University of Cologne, so try it out if you can.